proposed, but I don't know how long that will take. So that's something I'm just going to have to do in the background, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Okay, Chairman, we're live. So if you want to proceed.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, members of the panel. Good evening to the public and to other councillors and visitors on the meeting this evening. This is the Cabinet meeting for Colchester Borough Council on the 14th of October. This meeting is being held remotely in line with the provisions that the government had set out to enable local government decision making to be held remotely during the COVID crisis. The meeting is being broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, and the meeting will be available to view on the Council's YouTube channel afterwards. Councillors and officers taking part in the meeting are requested to mute their microphones. Please do that, everybody. And please activate the microphone when invited to speak and turn the microphone off again once you finish speaking. Visiting councillors, members of the public and officers not taking an active part in the meeting are requested to turn off their cameras until they are invited to speak. When speaking, please speak clearly and slowly. Please indicate to speak by using the raise hand function, and I will hopefully introduce you when you come forward and ask you to speak. I am chairman of the committee, so I chair the cabinet and lead the council, and I have a number of cabinet members around the meeting this evening. I'm in charge of strategy and communications, and the other cabinet members have their own portfolios. I will invite them all to represent themselves and say who they are and where they're from, in the alphabetical order, with Adam, then Martin, then Teresa, then David, then Mike and Julie. Hopefully we'll have Julie connecting soon. Okay, over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Adam Fox, portfolio holder for housing.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Leader. Hope you enjoy the evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Martin Goss, councillor for Mile End, but more importantly, the portfolio holder for waste, transport and environment.
I'm Teresa Higgins. I'm the councillor for Newtown and Christchurch, but I'm the portfolio holder for commercial services.
Good evening all. David King, Mile End councillor, cabinet member for business and resources.
Good evening, Mike Lilly. I'm the cabinet member for communities, wellbeing and public safety.
Thank you. And we don't have Councillor Julie Young yet. She's trying to connect to the meeting, but Councillor Julie Young is Deputy Leader of the Council and portfolio holder for culture and performance. I also represent Wivenhoe Ward as well as being Leader of the Council. Okay, thank you. I will also invite the key officers on the meeting this evening to introduce themselves. We have Adrian Pritchard, the Chief Executive, Andrew Weavers, the Monitoring Officer, and Richard Clifford, the Lead Democratic Services Officer, who helps this meeting run. So over to you, Adrian.
Evening, Leader, evening, Cabinet, evening, members of the public. Adrian Pritchard, Chief Executive of Colchester Borough Council.
Good evening, Andrew Weavers, Monitoring Officer.
Richard Clifford, Lead Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you all and good evening. So just to explain, if the meeting goes on some time, we will look at timing breaks approximately around 8 o'clock if we need to. If cabinet members need to depart from the screen, please give me notice and mute the screen as well as the microphone. So just to introduce the work of the cabinet for the benefit of the members of the public, we, the cabinet, are the executive body of the council. We are responsible for the day-to-day decision-making of the council's services and also to do with the budget. We make full recommendations to full council on major policy issues and, as I say, on the budget. The cabinet is made up of 7 councillors, each of whom are responsible for a particular range of services, and they've introduced their portfolios this evening. Moving on to item 2, the urgent items. I believe there are none. Richard, can you please confirm?
That's correct, Leader.
Thank you. And item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any members of the cabinet who need to do that this evening? No declarations of interest on these items. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the minutes of the last meeting, which the meeting was held on the 2nd of September. It was quite a substantial meeting, and I want to just ask if there's any corrections or indications on that. If not, we will take them as correct and we will note them as correct. I can't see any dissent, so we all agree those are correct. Do we need to vote on that, Richard, or can we agree consensually?
We can take agreement, Chairman.
Thank you, Richard. Next up is have your say, and I will invite the Democratic Services Officer to read out the have your say submission from Sir Bob Russell, and then I'll invite a visiting councillor to speak to Cabinet. That's Councillor Mark Goetcher. So, Richard, over to you to please put forward Sir Bob Russell's submission.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a have your say submission we received from Sir Bob Russell. Chairman, councillors. Yesterday lunchtime, an organ recital was held in the Moot Hall, socially distanced and limited to 50 people. Why cannot the Cabinet also meet in the Moot Hall? Plenty of room for members of the Cabinet and officers and members of the public. The chamber of the House of Commons has been open for weeks, so why not the Moot Hall for meetings of councillors? Only 2 buildings in Colchester High Street remain shut. The nightclub at the former Hippodrome, because government instructions are that it must remain shut. The other is the Town Hall, whose ornamental gates remain firmly locked, as the government instructed councils to lock their town halls. I also wish to address the Cabinet about Colchester's bid for £25 million in a national competition with 100 other towns. I would like to thank everyone involved, particularly those who have given voluntarily of their time. I hope the bid is successful. However, having read the report to Cabinet, it represents a lost opportunity, a once-in-a-generation opportunity as it has been described in the Colchester Daily Gazette. Colchester's unique selling point is its heritage and tourism potential. They barely get a mention. Somehow I think York and Chester would have had a different approach if they had been asked to bid for £25 million. Identifying the promotion and development of the Roman Circus as a national tourist attraction would immediately make a big difference in showing the judges, who will look at 100 applications, that Colchester is different to all the clone town applications from others. Next month is the 16th anniversary of when the Roman Circus was discovered. Had this been found in Chester or York, I am confident that long ago those councils would have seized upon its national and international importance, making a major attraction as a further boost to their tourism economy. Colchester's application is a clone town approach, any town, anywhere. There is nothing in the report which jumps out and highlights Colchester's unique characteristics. Change the name Colchester in the text to any number of other towns and the script would fit them just as much as they supposedly do Colchester. How many of Colchester's 50 borough councillors have been involved in the process? When did councillors debate the bid and vote on the matter? Surely the democratically elected representatives of the people should be making decisions. I repeat, I hope the application is successful, but failing to properly promote Colchester's USP, namely its rich heritage and tourism potential, which should be harnessed to boost the local economy, I feel this has been an opportunity missed. And that completes the submission, Chairman.
Thank you, Richard. That's very helpful. We often hear from Sir Bob Russell and we hear personally via email, and we do respond to him, and we will respond to him on this front. And actually the biggest and best response is the next item on the agenda. The main item today is about the Town Deal Fund and some of the fantastic opportunities that we are putting forward as we are Colchester Board, which involves some of the Borough Council. I happen to be lucky enough to be on that board, and we have Simon Blacksall, the chair of the board, today coming to speak. And Councillor King is also chair of the advisory board, which has carried out a lot of the engagement with members of the public, with business, with organisations of the Town Deal. So I think the best way to answer his questions from Sir Bob Russell would be to see the presentation, and then to add to that, I think Councillor King and Councillor Young, with her focus on heritage, will be able to pick out some of those answers in more depth on item 7. But also we will respond to Bob Russell, as we do on a number of items. I was pleased to talk to him recently about the oldest church in the borough and how we've done a magnificent job getting money in to make that a lot better, and he was very pleased to hear that. So we are absolutely polishing our assets and showing off our USP as much as possible. When it comes to meeting in the Moot Hall or meeting in the council, I think it's absolutely right that we lead by example to not cause any risks to members of staff, members of the public, or to fellow councillors. When he talks also about having the full council in the moot hall, I'm very concerned and would not want to put at risk some of our councillors who are of the age that are of the vulnerable category of over 70. And I think it would be an unnecessary risk. Now, I know that for full council, we will have the mayor and the deputy mayor and the deputy mayor elect all together with the process socially distanced. And I think that's an important part of tradition that must be kept. But we need to find that right balance. And actually, by allowing people to make submissions in written form or to come here and speak on video, which they're absolutely able to do, then that allows people to speak from anywhere, not having to come to the town hall. And I'm very aware when the council car park fills up of the environmental cost of us all coming in to the middle of town. And actually meeting virtually is a much more flexible way of doing it. And of course, when it is safe to do so, we will look at going to hybrid meetings more and also going back eventually to the town hall. But we will look at how we've learnt from ways during COVID and improve how we can connect virtually, digitally with people, with the public as best as possible. So thank you, Bob, for your concern. The town hall gates do open from time to time, for example, the organ recital you talked about. So they're not firmly shut all of the time. And we will make sure that information is on the town hall gates so that people know what is open, where is open. We've made sure we've done that with a traffic light system with our services as a council. And as we go into a second wave, which we are facing now, which we are in now, it is right to keep things risk-free and safe and signposts the members of the public as to where they need to go for services and not to come to the town hall. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Julie. I see you've managed to get on, so I'm glad you're here. Would you just like to introduce yourself as we missed you earlier? And then I'll move to the visiting councillors. Have your say. Julie.
Hello, sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah, I had a nightmare getting in, so sorry that I'm late. It's Councillor Julie Young. I'm Deputy Leader of the Council and Portfolio Holder for Culture, Performance and the Local Plan.
Thank you, Julie. Welcome. And if I could ask you to use the following protocol of mute, and we will speak to you later. Thank you. So I'll move to Councillor Mark Gocher, please, who's a visiting councillor under Have Your Say. Mark, good evening.
Good evening. Just two quick things. Firstly, there's one that I was asked by somebody else to ask today, and that is that there was a statement put out yesterday by the leaders of the groups on the council supporting Essex County Council's bid to have Colchester and Essex as a whole moved into Tier 2 of Boris's extremely confusing tier system. And the question is, could you explain the reasoning behind that statement, which was with the Conservatives, of course, as well, and why aren't you supporting openly Sir Keir Starmer's alternative approach of a 2-week national lockdown rather than the tier system? That was the question I was asked to ask. What I want to talk about myself is air pollution. And I welcome the initiative encouraging drivers to switch off their engines when stationary. I think that's a very kind of good thing to start with. It's something that certainly energised a lot of our supporters, and we'll be out supporting that on Sunday. So huge thanks for that. It's a good start. My question, I suppose, is what are we going to do next to move that further? Because great as the initiative is, it doesn't tackle the problem of pollution caused by moving traffic, where the traffic is shunting along slowly but not stationary. So what are we going to move this on further? The reason I'm asking is because there have been two recent reports in the media, well publicised. First one was from Friends of the Earth, which put Colchester on its list of polluted towns. It was well reported in the Gazette. But the second one was a report in the Guardian and other newspapers about the success that Sadiq Khan has had in London in dramatically reducing air pollution. 94% reduction in the number of people living in areas with illegal nitrogen dioxide emissions in London. I mean, that doesn't mean to say they've not got a massive problem still, because they were starting with just an appalling problem in the first place. But there has been considerable success. And what London is, of course, doing is focused around their low emission zones. So I know I've asked this before, but I'll ask it again. Why isn't Colchester going down the road or route of low emission zones? I can think of several candidates for low emission zones. Brook Street to start with, East Street, East Hill. Low emission zones force something to happen. Same with whatever you call it, clean air zones, another term for this sort of thing. But also, of course, London has road charging. Started with Ken Livingstone, expanded by Sadiq, and in his ultra low emission zone, it's a £12.50 charge. Now, I'm obviously not suggesting that for Colchester, but the Borough Council does have the power to extract funding from drivers. It also controls the parking in Colchester. So when are we going to start getting funding and pumping that funding into cleaning up the buses? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. If you could mute afterwards, that's helpful. Thank you. So first of all, in terms of the statement that we made that as group leaders and me as leader, because we were responding to the county council. Now, what has not been made public is all the discussions that were involved there, which involved Councillor Young supporting in my absence in the morning, and in the meetings we had in the afternoon, which were talking about the proposal from the Director of Public Health at Essex, who we all trust. He really is an excellent professional, and we do trust the information he's been giving us, which really is rapidly increasing in terms of exponential numbers of cases. And we know across the country that we see examples of Manchester and Liverpool, where we are sadly following that same trajectory just weeks later. I've recently penned a column for the Gazette where I am actually supporting that circuit breaker idea. Councillor Gocher, I think that is the right way forward. It's something actually, you've got a cabinet here of Liberal Democrats and of Labour Party members. Both Sir Keir Starmer and Sir Ed Davey have put forward that idea. And actually, I welcome the support that Sir Bernard Jenkins has given to that idea, at least in part recently. So I have as well written with the support of group leaders to Sir Bernard Jenkins, saying thank you for your comments that are supportive, talking about how we can also support our local economy, because we all believe around this cabinet firmly in the public health messaging and getting it right, supporting lives, but we've got to support livelihoods as well. And it's about the local economy at the moment. I met recently with Councillor King with some of the businesses of the nighttime economy, the pubs, the clubs, the local restaurants and bars who are suffering. And we need to make sure that if it's a circuit breaker, what I like about that route is that it's a clear, certain, sharp way of doing it. So we can see an end, but also the government could support businesses with an investment, knowing that it's a 3-week investment, for example, which I think must be more simple than a dragged out lockdown where the government have got to supply different formulas and different ways of supporting people. I think we'd all agree as progressives that it is a better way forward at this point to do a circuit breaker style. But what we were asked to do was to support Essex actually being proactive. And we've had quite a lot of feedback. We've had some opposition to that. So it's a sort of yes or no answer, really. And I was pleased to be involved, and Julie was involved as well, because we've seen feedback from other parts of the country where district councils and unitaries and even counties had not been involved properly. So that's good to see that the Director of Public Health for Essex and the County Council leader were willing to bring us into that conversation. Hopefully that answers your first question. Secondly, the air quality, I will refer to Councillor Goss shortly for that, but I'll just say the Environment Panel, which I chair and you are part of, Councillor Gocher, we will have an air quality project report update at the next meeting. So this project is, as you know, started already. The clean air strategy and campaign that some of us are at starting the other day, as you referenced, a really good campaign, is just one part of it. We do need to do more, and we have had support from government on this, and hopefully Councillor Goss can just add a bit more on that, please. Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for the question, and thank you for attending the meeting this evening. In terms of the project itself, it is funded by government. I think it was £250,000 we got towards this project to obviously look at the worst areas in Colchester. And as part of that, we'll be working with local schools as well, because that's an important part of dealing with emissions, because obviously there's lots of cars parked around schools amongst very young children. And obviously getting children involved in that becomes quite infectious, because it does make parents stand up and listen. So it's going to be very much around education, and that's part of the ethos of the project. So that is the stage, and that is the programme that we've had funded by government. You mentioned buses. Actually, we have done quite a lot of work on buses, because we have actually got them up to Euro 6 standard for a number of the buses. I think it's well over 20, where we got, I think it was 2 tranches of £250,000 from government, where we have removed those emissions. So we have taken care of some of the worst buses in Colchester and cleaned those up with external funding. And obviously, if we can get more funding to look at any more of the older fleet from the commercial operators, we will of course do that. We do have conversations with bus companies quite regularly. So there has been some good work funded. Obviously, the low emission zones, again, yes, I'm aware of it. I have had conversations about that. It would need the support of Essex County Council, I believe, as the Highway Authority. And at our regular meetings with Councillor Kevin Bentley, who's in charge of highways, certainly emissions and air quality is something we do talk about as a standing agenda item. And I'll certainly be having conversations with him. We certainly won't be supporting a congestion charge at this time. There has been that talked about, but I don't believe that is the right approach at this moment in time. I think we need to build on the education that we've started with turning off vehicles, working with schools in the area, and then obviously looking at other options. And of course, car parking does come into that, along with park and ride and public transport and walking and cycling. And obviously that will develop with the SGH work that's ongoing at the moment with Essex, where they are looking at obtaining more funding from government, because of course more people out of cars walking and cycling will of course reduce air pollution. So happy to keep you updated, happy to work with you, and always happy to receive any ideas or comments at any time, Mark, so you know to email me, phone me, and I will always respond. But thank you ever so much for coming along this evening and giving your very vital input as always.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Mark, for coming along. I hope that helped answer your questions. Okay, thank you. We will move on then to item number 6, which is urgent decisions discussed and referred by the scrutiny panel, for which I think there are none, although we have got the minutes and the feedback from the scrutiny panel on the agenda items 7.2 and 7.3. Richard, unless there's anything else, I will move on. Thank you. To item 7, which is the main item of the evening. And I'm really pleased to say that we've got Simon Blacksall here as chair of the Town Deal Board, the We Are Colchester initiative. And I will invite Simon to speak very shortly. And I know we have a presentation that we will present. And I think Ian Vipon will speak as the lead director on the council for this item. So thank you, Simon, for coming. We've enjoyed having you as chair of the board, and I hope that we will deliver the full amount of £25 million on top of the 1 million we've already successfully achieved. And I won't ruin any of your thunder, and I'll happily hand over to you now, and then we'll be happy to talk about this project after you've finished, and hopefully you'll stay for any questions. But over to you, Simon. Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for having me along. I'll be pleased to give the presentation this evening. I think, Ian, you're kicking off. Is that right with the presentation? No.
Now, I was hoping, Simon, you would do your introduction.
Right.
I can see the report up on the screen, but I'm hoping someone is going to bring the presentation up.
Going straight into the town deal, is that right? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Can we go to the next slide, please? Right. Good evening, everybody. I think, as you're probably all aware, the town deal bid is a fantastic chance for Colchester to bid for £25 million, or as it turns out, £26 million, because I understand the accelerated fund is additional to that 25 million. There's no doubt we are very fortunate to be one of 101 towns selected to go for this fantastic opportunity. I have to say I was concerned when the COVID came along that all bets might be off, but pleasingly the government have decided that actually it's very much part of the recovery plan. And there's no doubt also that the 25 million isn't where we would like to stop. We would like that to lead to much bigger things by being a form of seed capital. I think what's particularly exciting for me is that it's given the town and the broader community a chance to develop a vision and a strategy, not just for 5 years, but for the next 25 years. The intention is, given success, and obviously at this moment we mustn't presume anything because the submission goes in at the end of the month and I'm sure we'll get duly scrutinised, but the fantastic opportunity is, I think, also that a body will have been created that can help deliver a strategy for Colchester over that much longer period. I'm sure many of you are aware that the board does, and Mark mentioned a minute ago, he is represented, the Colchester Borough is represented with Adrian Pritchard. The County Council is also represented. On the board, further, the directors include two very important bodies, Homes England and CELEP, two bodies with significant amount of monies to invest. So given success and given the hugely supportive role of those two members, that does bode well for us to be able to leverage larger sums of money. The wider community is also represented on the board, from voluntary groups such as Colchester 360 to Health, from business to Colby to the University of Essex. And again, I think that's a major plus because Colchester, University of Essex has sometimes been a little bit on the outside of the town, and there's been some really good communication with the university. Behind the board, there is, and very importantly behind the board, I should say, the advisory group led by Councillor King, David King, and that has persons representing areas of specific interest such as art and culture. They've developed, as well as many other areas, they've developed themes that are in some cases behind specific projects that are part of the submission. Also pleasingly, over 1,000 members of the public have been engaged in the project. Fundamentally, three themes have been developed as stated on the slide there: how we live, grow and connect. And I would say this has been a huge exercise which the project team, and that's who are doing lots of the hard work, have pulled together magnificently. A lot of this is about managing expectations. It's consulting everybody and then condensing it into a form which is has got both short-term projects and longer-term opportunities. I would like very much to thank those who've been doing the hard work behind the scenes. I'm sure they've had day jobs, they've had COVID thrown at them, and then this project on top. So my sincere thanks to them. As I say, in the project, there is genuinely something for all. There are short-term projects. And the accelerated fund is not strictly part of the town fund, but as you're aware, St Nicholas Square is on the horizon for that. But as I say, for me, the big prize is what can be achieved over the next 25 years. And I believe passionately that the way the group have worked together at all levels is really good for Colchester. Change is never easy, as I'm sure you're all aware, and strangely, out of bad can come good. And I think COVID has required us all in all walks of life to look at how we operate. And I think possibly as a result, we're going to be bolder in areas than we might otherwise have been. So as I say, it's a very exciting opportunity. And as Councillor Corrie said, let's hope we get the money. I think the bid will be a really good one, and you know, very, very good for Colchester if we can pull it off. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Simon. Next slide, please. Good evening, Chair, and good evening, Cabinet. As Simon says, this is an excellent opportunity for the town. Perhaps simply have said, once in a lifetime you get these opportunities, and we need to make the most of it. Just to confirm that the bid is for the town of Colchester, so it's the urban area of Colchester. That's one of the criteria of the scheme. The criteria that have been set by government do require us to address the challenges that are based in Colchester at the moment. And as Simon has said, develop a strategy, it's long-term strategy, while recognising that COVID has given us some need to respond to some quite short-term issues. That criteria identifies a number of objectives. This is a capital bid, so this is about projects that can be built. So we just have to bear that in mind as we go through the range of projects that we might be looking at. As has been said, really the objective of the bid from Colchester's perspective is to get the maximum amount of funding that we can from that grant, so up to 25 million, and then to multiply that investment. So use those bids, those schemes to attract additional funding, and perhaps look at a substantial increased amount of investment going into town. We have been, since we knew the government was like restarting the town bid programme, doing a lot of work behind the scene. And one of the key criteria, in addition to the evidence-based work that we need to do, is the engagement with the wider public and various organisations that represent Colchester, both the residents and businesses. And that's what we've been doing, and that is outlined on that slide in front of you. We have been very fortunate to get an opportunity for accelerated funding, and we won the maximum amount possible, 1 million, which we have earmarked for 2 public realm schemes in the town of Colchester around Balkan Gate and St Nicholas Square. Next slide, please. So when we went to the public and did some engagement about what are the issues that were of a key concern to those, this slide just is a typical sort of word map that shows you the sort of words that were being provided back to us by the public. Very interested in green spaces, the way we travel, particularly sustainable means of travel, but also recognising the need to find jobs, but particularly, I think, activities for youth and engaging youth and young people going forward. So a range of issues identified by the public. Next slide. Thank you. This slide, another word map, picks up on all of the advisors that we consulted, and we went through an advisory board and a town assembly and various advisors from various different organisations. And these are the words that, in a sense, came up back from them in response to that public consultation. And they began to identify issues, as I say, how we live, how we connect, how we grow, as we've talked about, but also some specific sort of areas like Greenstead, which is known to be an area where we have some significant issues that need addressing. Next slide, please. So this is a slide of the potential schemes that we are looking at, that the board are looking at. I say this is draft. No guarantee these schemes will go ahead or that other schemes won't be added. We're still at that final analysis stage, and the board will make the decision about which schemes actually go forward. But you will see in the range of schemes on the slide that they run from, on the left-hand side, a number of schemes that are intended to engage on your future potential for youth and others to engage with, particularly digital working, which we see as an area which will expand in Colchester after perhaps COVID has passed on, but particularly looking at how we engage with the young people and the youth who are dramatically affected by COVID, and we know they form a significant proportion of the current unemployed and those likely to be made unemployed over the next few months, unfortunately. So a lot of work to be done there. In the middle, we have Building a Better Town, which is a range of schemes, particularly looking at public realm and making the town itself a more attractive place where people want to visit, where they want to dwell, issues in terms of greening the streets. And that's not just in the town centre, that's across the town, but particularly, as I say, we've picked up on the need to look at the heart of Greenstead. We're looking at some of the historic buildings in the town, as I say, looking at how we can improve the town for all, but particularly to ensure that, be that future residents in the town, and we'd like to have more residents in the town, particularly the town centre, but also businesses, so that people are attracted into the town. And then over on the right-hand side, connecting going forward. So connecting, not just physically connecting in terms of movements and the issue of streets and walking and cycling, but also in terms of improved digital connection, particularly 5G. Next slide, please. So this slide picks up on a few examples of the type of schemes that we're looking at, just gives a bit of representations of the potential for and after. We have a building there on Queen Street, which some will know as the old bus depot site, which could be one of the future digital hubs that we're looking for in the town centre. We've got examples there of what Tamarisk Way at Greenstead might look like, and there's been various engagement on that over the years, but also smaller schemes such as the narrow lanes in Colchester town and the historic buildings like Trinity Church. Next slide, please. So in terms of the distribution across the town, again, picking up on the fact that this is concentrated on the urban area of Colchester. And yes, there are a number of schemes in the town centre, but looking at a distribution of those schemes into various neighbourhoods across the town, and looking at the connections between some of those areas, particularly the sustainable connections, the cycling routes that might be improved as part of a wider transport strategy for Colchester. Next slide, please. And specifically in the town centre, a number of improved public spaces, those are the green spaces identified on that map, a number of youth and skills provisions, they're the blue squares, and digital working, but as I say, all about the connection. And that's the point I would emphasise, that those broad three areas of how we live, how we grow, and how we connect are interwoven. Each of those projects has an element of perhaps all of those themes built into it, together forming a balanced and comprehensive proposal that that could make a huge difference to the town. Next slide, please. So the next steps, the bid needs to be submitted by the end of this month. So the board will meet to decide the final submission going in. That will be assessed by government, and then we would hope to have an indication towards the end of the year, perhaps into next year, in terms of how much funding has been awarded to the town. Because these are capital schemes, there's a lot of work yet to do on the detailed business case and project, and they will then begin to be brought forward, and they have to be completed over a period of 2022 to 27. As I say, the balance for that investment is about how you attract other investment to support those schemes. And we're looking to turn that 25 million into 100 million of investment into the town. And that's a very big kick to the Colchester economy just at the time it needs it most. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Simon, very much for that introduction and that detailed report. There's a lot more work that's gone on behind, absolutely, as Simon says, and I will thank Simon and Ian for that, but also Councillor King for his work on the advisory board, and for all of those who've engaged with this process. The residents that have engaged, it's great to hear how many have engaged, that's brilliant, but also the public assemblies that we carried out, the businesses that have been involved. And as Simon explained, the board is made up of a number of key organisations as well as local businesses. And it's great to work with them and to bounce ideas off, to have similar thoughts that have created this vision that the public have also put forward. And that has really come together well. For me, I would say that it's about engagement, it's about vision, it's about delivery. As said, that group of people on the board and the advisory group has brought together a diverse range of people in Colchester. And I'm really convinced that together with the public's ideas, we've come up with the best possible palette of investment that we can ensure we make Colchester a really inviting place to visit, but also for our residents to enjoy. And that's the vision piece. And I do think we are building here a vision, as Simon says, for much further in the future. We have got the £1 million, which is a success of delivery already, and I hope to see the St Nicholas Square and the Mercury Balkan Gate part of the public realm improved as soon as possible. That shows that there'll be the first stage of our delivery of these projects, and then there's many other ways in which we will deliver, because we're working and engaged with those partners. And actually, as I think Simon said, that the darkness of COVID has not deterred us, and actually the light that has come out of this project, the working together, the partnership working, has really helped us come together and put forward something that I think most people will be happy with. And I hope that other cabinet members will be happy to support this and carry on working within this, projects that fall in their responsibilities. They will work together with the board and with the advisory group to make sure those are delivered. So I thank Simon again and thank Ian. We've got that initial £1 million. I hope we'll get the 25 million. I thank everyone who's been involved so far. That includes residents, that includes the MP as well. And we want to make sure we deliver this vision for Colchester and continue the positive engagement we've done so far. I will move on to other councillors, and I know that we were going to pick up some of Bob Russell's comments from earlier. I know that David and Julie will do that. So the first person I'll hand over to is David, please.
Thank you very much, Leader, and to Ian and Simon before your remarks. In dark times, it's not often you can be cheerful, but we really do need to be. This is a rainbow moment. Whatever the language we use, once in a generation, it most certainly is an opportunity, and the best opportunities are, frankly, at times of change and times of crisis, and both compound each other. We are really well placed for all the reasons that Ian has set out, and that's why you must stick together, stay together, support this, support Simon, and see this home. What I wanted to talk about before I address Sir Bob's remarks, Leader, is just the fundamentals of the engagement work that's been done. As the advisory group chair, I've been party to at least some of those many thoughtful discussions. As Simon described them, great work by the team with their partners and at pace in difficult times. A huge effort. Within the group also to provide counsel and advice with Councillor Judy Young and you, Leader, as well in the process, and many others. We've been focused together on what might best work for our town and crucially might bring in additional investment. And there's been a harmony to that, actually, in terms of what matters most. We have, without exception, I think at the advisory group level, certainly, all of us have seen that the most important thing is the win. A discussion without success can have its pluses, but it won't deliver change that we need at a time that's really crucial for our town and the wider borough. And so what's been presented and what's been run through, although it's still subject to process under the chairmanship of Simon, we've still got a way to go yet and a long way afterwards. It's been shaped to fit the criteria. It's been shaped to win. It's been shaped to fit or alive to the grain of government policy. One illustration touched on by Mark Goetcher and others earlier is air quality and changing the way in which we sort of travel, move around, how we visit and how we use our towns, that vision that we as a cabinet are supporting through our recovery work. A better town centre, a more enjoyable place to visit and to live in. And I believe that these proposals not only address fundamentals like deprivation, but they provide that impetus, that change that we need that fits the times that we're in. But to the point I wanted to make, which is around that engagement piece, what you have is not just soundly based because some of us see it as such, and intellectually it fits the criteria and it fits policy. It reflects the engagement and contributions of many residents from all walks of life. Hundreds have been consulted and involved, and many have contributed. We've heard from those with passions and those who care, but this is more than the great and the good, as I've said. It's about the residents, their views, their take, from the youth council to the views of hundreds in person and online, their collective good sense and take, their wishes and wants and needs for Colchester have shaped our work and the choices that lie ahead in the way that Ian described them by showing that the impacted words that reflect the importance that individuals attach to what matters to them in the borough. So with over 1,000 engagements, we can say we do know what people want. There is a consensus broadly, I think, for better youth facilities, easier cycling and walking. 86% wanted Colchester to be more pedestrian friendly. 8 in 10 asked we deliver a better ambience. Lots of scope there for judgment, I accept, and more social space. 9 in 10 wanted more attractive public space. 93%, this really works for me, looking after the Woodland project for you, wanted more planting. So I want to be really clear to Cabinet and those who listen beyond this, so we do, the board does have a mandate. I would put it as simply as Simon Braxfield put it to me once, is about a better, greener, more beautiful Colchester. And I think for all those of us involved so far, it's about people and connectivity and the potential to make a better life for people, better surroundings for them. So that's what I wanted to say about the project, and in particular on the support and relationship it has. Absolutely a building block for what we do to the consultation, which is now and onwards. Let me address Sir Bob's remarks. Councillor Judy Young would wish, I think, to address the Roman circus issue specifically, but I would just say 3 things, some of which touched on before, Leader. Firstly, as you and others have said, £1 million is in the bank. Our work is underway to make a transformational step for the gateway schemes at Balkan Gate and St Nicholas Square. They showcase our heritage. The proposed town deal bid would allow us to safeguard the use of Holy Trinity Church, which is, I understand, Bob may be able to correct me, the oldest standing building in Colchester. And I'm hopeful that we may yet, conversations lie ahead, and all of this is subject to process and the board's decisions, we may be able to do something really attractive, illumination at least, perhaps better, regarding the Jumbo, a huge part of our history and a huge landmark. And lastly, Sir Bob, if you do listen to this, you will know, and I know you would applaud what we've done in the last year or so. Taken a long time, great cost and great difficulty to illuminate, light up our town walls, our castle, and our war memorial. All of those are the right things to do. They've been done by this administration. If we take that together, I think we have made significant progress and dramatic progress in lighting up literally our USP of heritage. But I and we must point out that in terms of what makes our town and our borough attractive, it's more than heritage alone. It's about our culture, our arts, it's the places you can eat and drink. It's all that makes up for a memorable, distinctive, absolutely not a clone town of Colchester. I commend accordingly and pass to Councillor Young.
Thank you, Councillor King. I agree with everything you've said there. And Councillor Young, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to acknowledge the views that our High Steward has put in writing to us this evening, and to reassure him that we have ongoing dialogue with Colchester Ecological Trust, and we are working with them closely to see what can be done to make more of that site. As you will be aware, it is a complicated site. There's lots of different owners involved in the site, and I think we're kind of proceeding with a plan which will not only focus on the here and now, but will be something that can be developed in the future. So it's not something that can be progressed quickly. And as my understanding has it, in terms of the town deal, this is really about projects that will support our recovery. So it's about jobs, it's about homes, it's about our environment. And we need to have projects that we can actually get on with. As you will know, in terms of the Abro site at the Roman Circus, part of that comes over the footprint of the Roman Circus, and in the future we might be able to do something about that. But we will be working on the interpretation of the site. It's not something that we have forgotten about, but we will have plans in the future that will support the aspiration I think Bob has to make more of the Roman Circus. But as Councillor King has indicated, and as Simon Blaxall has alluded to in his presentation, there are other points of focus within the town deal application that does relate to our heritage. And the tower, the Holy Trinity Church, is a Saxon tower. And so that is important for us as well. We are known for our Roman heritage, but we are also known for our Civil War weapons as well. And our history is very rich and deep. And there won't be any letter, I know, from the 51 councillors that is involved in Colchester Borough Council in wanting to do more about our heritage and culture. And if you allow me, I'll speak a little bit later on when we're talking about our plans in terms of the budget, about actually how we're performing in terms of our culture and heritage in Colchester. But, you know, it is a good story to tell. And I hope that the town deal is successful and we can, as David said, showcase some of our assets by the money that will come to the town.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. I agree with, again, everything you've put forward there, and hope to hear a bit more later on the heritage angle. Thank you. I don't see any other people indicating, and I do think we've got a fantastic opportunity here. It originally was to really promote the town, and through COVID, we've had such challenges. We know that it's going to be more about recovery, but I do think we're really well placed with a good chair of the board, with good engagement, with good partners on board, and with a good start with the maximum £1 million that we achieved. We've got things for the future of this town, as well as the history, and I look forward to hoping to deliver a youth zone that David had talked about, which brings in some of that money that we've said we want to aspire towards, that 25 million, multiplying up with external investment and match funding to £100 million for Colchester. So we're in the driving seat. Let's make sure we head in the right direction. And Cabinet this evening, if we can agree this to go forward, it's temporary at the moment, the suggestions, as Ian Bipon said, we will put this back to the board and hope that the submission goes in at the end of October as planned. So can we vote on this, please? Richard?
Thank you, Chairman. I think the monitoring officer is going to administer the vote.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So you're voting on the recommendations contained in paragraph 2.1 of the report, paragraphs A to H. Councillor Fox.
4.
4. Councillor Goss.
4.
4. Councillor Higgins.
4.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
4.
4. And Councillor Corey.
4.
That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Very happy for that to be unanimous, and we'll take that back to the board. So thank you again to Ian and to Simon for visiting this evening and presenting. The next item is onto the budget. So I'll hand over to Councillor King to present this item, please.
Thank you, Leader, colleagues. I'll provide an overview to paper which has had intense examination and productively so at scrutiny yesterday. And as I often say, it's rare that as a local authority finds itself talking about the national context, but we absolutely have to keep doing that because it will drive so much of what will affect us and how we will find our way through. Now, as a nation, we know, we've been talking about what will happen in terms of tier 2 and so on. In Essex and the effects locally, we stand on the edge of a pandemic and economic precipice, again, where a fast rising second wave will depress recovery and impact us all, including businesses and residents who we seek to support, and the income upon which we as a council depend. In these circumstances, the only certainty is uncertainty, which is why this is the third budget paper since the spring, which navigates as best we can those challenges and ensures that Cabinet and members and the public see what we see. Scrutiny last night was robust and productive and searching, with praise for the quality of work, as in their own note and advice to us, which we'll address later, and the quality of work of our finance team and their counterparts. Scrutiny's concerns are mine and all of ours: how deeply we could yet be impacted, how robust are our reserves, what monies, what savings, what changes we might need to make to balance the books. My assurance then as now is substantial. We are tracking what we know on cost, commitment, and critically what we earn, helped by the support arrangements with government, partial though they are, and the savings addressed in the next paper. We will both balance the books this year and secure an essential, vital breathing space next year in which we can tackle the next challenge, the further deep savings needed in the future years that are addressed by this paper. 3 further points, if I may, Leader. The overall impact on this council's income this year is extraordinary. Commercial income is recovering, but by year end, we will still have lost towards half of the budget, and with lost business rates and council tax and extra COVID costs, will be down by over £11 million. Government support will reduce this, we think, to some 4.3 million or so, subject to the mechanisms that apply, which are a measure of safeguard for us as well. But we face significant volatility and a deep cut call on reserves, and we have no future arrangements agreed yet with government. Secondly, the impact on individuals and on businesses has not been fully seen. Government support has kept many jobs alive and many businesses just about hanging on, but it's tapering for them, and it will taper and it will run dry unless it's extended for government, for local government. We therefore face deep losses, uncertainty and risk through the coming years, not least, and I no apology for saying it one more time, because we have no further government support yet. There are conversations being had. We are awaiting the end of year comprehensive spending assessment, which sets out future funding arrangements. It will be critical that local government gets a mixture of stability. There's many changes in prospect. We could do without those, so could others, and additional support to mitigate at the least the impacts we know we will face beyond the end of March next year. We must lobby for that. We must remind them of the Parliament promise to stand with us shoulder to shoulder. As I say, that needs to extend beyond March 21, because it's absolutely a certainty the impacts of the pandemic and the economic crisis will be with us for years. Until then, we will, by our own efforts, balance the books and find a way at least harm to our residents and to the town and those we support. So I commend the recommendations and the paper. I thank the officers for producing it, the work that lies behind it, the continuous refinement of analysis and judgment of impact and effect. I can assure Cabinet and those watching where we are is in a sound place. We know our position. We are putting forward prudent assessments, not rash ones, of what we can do, where we will go, what the challenge will be. But uncertainty, as I've described it, is extraordinary, macroeconomic, not in our gift other than in the margins. As we address recovery, we can only hold some of those levers, as everybody will understand. We will monitor, track and adjust the forecast Cabinet see tonight. Scrutiny accepted that last night. This process, this is a way moment. We will continue this work through to the beginning of next year. We will provide a short update to Cabinet when we come to you with fees and charges, an old favourite, in November, and capital before confirming our budget for next year. So that's it from me, Leader. I commend the paper accordingly.
Thank you, David, and thank you again for explaining that very clearly. And last night at scrutiny, you and the officers were praised for the clarity of the budget papers and the way that you've managed over the years to improve the readability of them. It's still a minefield for some of us and for the public out there, but quite clearly you've explained that these are difficult times. We are asking for more support, but because of our prudent approach, we are managing it with reserves and with a number of other mechanisms, that part of which the paper shortly will explain. So thank you, David. Now, I don't see any other comments from Cabinet members. We have been through this report. We took it to scrutiny last night, where all Cabinet members were attending to support, and we spoke on specific items of the budget and the business cases in the next item. So what I'll do is just refer to the recommendations from the scrutiny panel now. I'm not sure if we'll be able to present those, but I can read those out to Cabinet as well. So I'll thank you, Richard, for sharing those. So last night, as I say, praising the budget work and the officers and David as they did resolve to support that they positively reviewed and scrutinised the progress to date on the budget and the medium-term financial forecast, and commented on the report to us this evening, and recommended to Cabinet, so this is important to add to our decision tonight, to recommend that Cabinet speaks with other Essex authorities to compare the local government income compensation scheme data submitted to MHCLG, thereby enriching benchmarking and other data used for budgeting to improve our assumptions and our sort of joint partnership and joint good practice working. So hopefully, Cabinet, with that recommendation, we can accept that and accept the budget paper tonight. And therefore, I'll ask Andrew Weavers to come forward and execute the vote. Thank you.
Yes,
Councillor King has his hand raised.
Councillor King, please. Thank you, Richard. You're on mute, David.
Sorry, Leader. Sorry, all. Just want to say very briefly, just to round off the point about the recommendation. This is this benchmarking work, this share, show and tell is absolutely good practice. It is what we do. This kind of information is being shared. It's very helpful, though, that the scrutiny panel have given their weight and reinforcement to it. And I've talked to the finance staff today. This is in hand. We'll take what we can, and we'll give what we can, and we welcome the support of scrutiny.
Thank you, David. I'll just say, when I had the resources portfolio as well, we did share good practice, and I think even more so during the crisis we have. So it is good work that's already happening, and it was good of scrutiny to highlight it, to see what more we could do. And I commend your point there. Thank you. We often lead in this area as well, helping with other authorities in Essex. Andrew, please, let's go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm that we are voting on recommendations 2.1 to 2.3, plus the recommendation from the scrutiny panel as just discussed. So Councillor Fox?
For.
For. Councillor Goss?
Absolutely.
Councillor Higgins?
For.
For. Councillor King?
For.
For. Councillor Lilly?
For.
For. Councillor Young?
For.
For. And Councillor Corey?
For.
For. That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you again to the finance team, for all staff that put that together, and to David for keeping it driving in the right direction. So the next item is another substantial item this evening, titled the COVID business case for council efficiency and transformation. And I'll just give a few words of introduction to this paper, and again hand over to Councillor King, who's been leading on this work, but it does touch upon the whole of the council. It's a way in which we are very openly and transparently putting forward to the public and to members to show how we are responding, how we have responded during the crisis, how we are responding now and facing a second wave, but also how we've learnt lessons, and through the transformation during the crisis, we have seized opportunities and are looking at other opportunities to seize to ensure going forward we are best placed economically and best placed to serve our residents in the community across the borough. So we've looked at 5 different areas to ensure we really focus on doing the right things in recovery at this time. First of all, that's our priorities. We set a strategic plan and we need to stick to those. The top priorities we have for the borough that we have shared at a number of cabinet meetings so far during this year. Also, we need to look at efficiency savings. Obviously, that is a key part of what we've been doing over the years as we've had cuts from government, but we can always find efficiencies, especially with technologies and service transformation going forward. Service transformation is the third item we've been looking into, seeing how we can remodel after COVID and also during COVID, and looking at new opportunities going forward. And that often involves the radical agenda on environmental pushes that we are trying to do as well, and the virtual agenda, which of course has been greatly pushed during COVID. We've also got the commercial strand, where we're looking to raise income as much as possible by sweating our assets, which we have done really, really well, to the point where we received the prestigious MJ Award for being the best commercial council in the country, which is great to hear. And that means we've obviously supported our base budget by bringing in income. So that means we can keep council tax lower and service costs lower. However, during COVID, it has hit our income, so we're going to have to work even harder to supplement the budget. And one last thing would be community, because we have always strove to support our people during the difficult times that we've had during COVID and going into the future. How best do we transform our services to ensure we are connecting with the people, engaging with the people, and looking at who can do the work alongside us. Co-production, working with Community 360 has been excellent in terms of partnerships, engaging the community, looking at what the community can do for itself, as well as us as the council not telling people what to do, working with them. So those are the 5 key areas that we're focused on. And I do think we are going to be successful thanks to the work across the council of the staff, led by Richard Block. And I'll pass over to David shortly just to say a bit more about the work he has done. I think we've pulled every lever that we have available to us to ensure that we are sustainable economically in the future. We've worked successfully with partners during COVID, and we will continue beyond. We saw the work and the explanation on the town deal that Simon Blacksall gave us earlier, an independent chair from business, showing that we connect with business as well as our key public sector partners and our third sector partners. We've also worked with members, being transparent about the finances, being transparent about the problems, asking for support and ideas. We set up a scrutiny subcommittee, a task and finish group that was looking at particular ideas to raise income. Unfortunately, that didn't bring forward all the ideas to increase income, but we did take some ideas from that. But we have had to come up with the best strategy going forward that protects the frontline services, but does see efficiencies at the back line. And I would say that it is difficult when you've got such great members of staff. Colchester Borough Council is an ambitious, forward-thinking council with great staff, but we will have to lose staff positions as part of the efficiencies, and David will talk to that. So I will leave it there and pass over to Councillor King and any other cabinet members who would want to raise some of the items in their portfolios. So thank you. David, over to you.
Thank you, Leader, and I welcome complimentary remarks from colleagues, of course. As our guy on the money, for me, this has to be about balancing the books, as it is for us all. So we must reduce costs, as you described this. We must raise income, and as you've said, Leader, we must do it with least harm to jobs, people, and services to residents. So this is about looking also for constructive ways of doing that, possibilities, transformation, which means working with others in the ways you've touched upon, Leader. In the papers is the detail, tested by portfolio holders, tested by the teams, tested last night and welcomed by scrutiny. 3 assurances briefly I'd like to give both colleagues and for those who are listening in. This is smart work. It's owned by the organisation, which has been important to us and to them. It's been led at a senior level. It's been created in an engaged way with those affected. It's been, as I say, tested. It brings in 2.1 million as a contribution to the future budget. It's a cross-cutting corporate budget strategy. to ensure that it's joined up and not siloed, as the paper says. This is, as you've said, a front line first. The front line takes 20% of the impact. The balance comes from additional commercial income and back office savings. And we will care for those affected. Despite all of the team's efforts, 28 posts will go, but 8 of these will be vacancies, and we expect natural staff turnover will create opportunities in the months ahead for redeployment. Any staff who are eventually made redundant will be provided with a package of support, including coaching, training and support to apply for other jobs. But the team will do all they can with our support to provide opportunities within the organisation over the coming months to move across to vacancies as they arise, and with a very disciplined approach that looks to help those, we have got some feedback, to help those most at risk. Underpinning this will be the possibility of voluntary redundancy also. So this is all about, as an approach to our people, accepting the challenge and trying, it's work in progress, subject to consultation and all that follows, trying to make this as least impactful and least difficult. But it will hurt, we need to understand that, and I hope that we do. Lastly, we must be honest about the challenge with staff and residents now and future, not least because the balance or the budget gap we have to address in the later years. This is the first bite. It is by no means easy, but there is a lot more to do unless government support is provided, unless there's a remarkable turnaround in commercial income. We will have to be back at this, and so will the organisation next year, to take out more cost from the organisation, and it will impact upon people, and it will impact upon jobs. We will do that together as best we can. If I might, one last and final point. The scrutiny panel rightly asked questions around the medium and longer term. This is touched upon in the paper. We were able to make plain in the conversation, and it's consistent with their request from us, that we look at our ways of working, our public estate. We are doing that already. We look at Rowan House and places that we know well, because we know that the world of work has changed. So this is the first of a number of years of hard choices for us, for fellow members, and for those in the organisation who serve us so well. But we must keep a positive approach to this. We have time to work at this. We have very thoughtful, bright people, hope they won't mind us saying the obvious, who will look at how we will shape those services in a constructive way. We'll look with the staff at how we change the ways of working. We'll look at opportunities for extended shared services with other authorities. So the transformation can feel a bit of a dead word when we're talking about job losses, but this is genuinely about looking at both, and that's how we'll mitigate the impact upon our people and upon the service we provide residents. I'll leave it to my colleagues to add depth and flavour, for they own a part of all of this. I own more of the overview. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'll pass to Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Leader. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to actually highlight some of the very successful work our staff are doing to make things better in terms of budget considerations. So certainly on the museum side of things, we are performing exceptionally well, given the fact that we've been in COVID and we've been shut for quite a lot of the summer months. So I didn't want to lose the opportunity to share with the Cabinet our performance in terms of admissions. So we are currently looking at the same period last year, the same weeks last year to this year. We're at just under 70% of our visitor numbers as compared with last year. And in terms of admissions income, we're at 71%. Now, just to give some context of that, the regional figures are between 30 and 50%. And in terms of national museums visitor numbers, national statistics are on 12%. So that just shows how innovative our staff are, given all the challenges that we're still actually bringing people into our museum service. And that's about new ways of working. So if you look just at Heritage Open Days, for example, we've done the same service now, the same sort of pattern of delivery now for 20 years. With COVID, we weren't able to offer the same access to buildings that we have done over the last 20 years. So it was a digital service. So 14 films were created, and that attracted just under 15,000 viewings. In terms of walking tours, we've got another school doing a walking tour tomorrow. We're doing packs that are going out to schools, because we know that the schools coming into the museum service, it is really, really down. And we've put personnel on the end of the bridge at the castle to encourage people into the castle. So although it looks a very bleak picture in terms of budgetary considerations, and I wouldn't want to undermine that, I think our innovative staff are not only focusing on forcing out efficiencies, they are doing all they can to bring people into the museum service in particular. And that is about the castle being a really safe environment. We've worked really hard at making that safe, and that is giving confidence to people to come through the front door. So forgive me doing that little bit of advert, but just in terms of job creation, we've got 9 trainees. We're working with DWP to give 9 young people the opportunity, a funded training programme, which will go across all elements of museum service work, which will be transferable skills that they can move on to jobs in other sectors. I'll leave it there, but I just didn't want this to be a purely focused on, fee rises and cuts and job losses, when we need to talk about the positive work that our staff are doing as well to overcome these difficulties.
Thank you, Julie. You're absolutely right. And I think both Councillor King and I were giving the whole overview of some of the real serious situation we face, but also the excellent efficiency work that's being done. But you've really captured there the performance of the council and how we will bounce back through investment, innovation and support of our excellent staff. So thank you for that, for adding more light into this debate. So thank you. I have Councillor Adam Fox and then Councillor Teresa Higgins. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much, Leader. I just wanted to, first of all, thank David for his work on this. And I think in particular, his effort to provide engagement and transparency across the council on tackling what are really hard choices for us as a council, looking at the year ahead and looking over subsequent years as well. I just wanted to touch also, Leader, on your comments about Colchester Borough Council being awarded the title of Best Commercial Council. And it's a term that might be uncomfortable for some, but it really demonstrates what we have done as a council to ensure that we can still deliver for our residents. And being commercially focused is enabling us as a council to deliver more council-built homes and ensure that those that really need a roof over their heads are provided one by the council. And it's also enabling us to deliver some really innovative stuff around our declaration of a climate emergency and being able to respond to that by investing in projects that will meet the needs over the coming years to really reduce our carbon emissions across the borough too. But I just wanted to end by saying that, you know, this administration is taking those tough decisions, and I know that our staff are working, you know, really hard at the moment to continue to deliver for our residents. The work that Councillor King has done in engaging with councillors has been really important, and I know that councillors have really valued that. I think what has been eye-opening for me is that the decisions and the options that we have put forward have been broadly welcomed, and in fact, so far there have been no other alternatives put forward by others to the work that we've been doing, and I think that is a demonstration of the work that this council has done over 10+ years of stewarding the finances really well and continue to deliver really good value services for the people of Colchester. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I was nodding along with pretty much all of that. Thank you. And Councillor Higgins, please. Teresa.
Yes, thank you very much. I also want to add my thanks to all the staff for gaining the award for the Commercial Council of the Year, because I think, you know, they've been under great pressure for getting the dividends and all that sort of stuff. So I just like to personally thank them whilst we are on this broadcast. I also want to just add a couple of more things. One is to thank the staff at Leisure World, because it's been quite tricky for them to get it up to scratch so that people can swim safely and use other bits of it. And of course, because the whole of it's not being used, you know, that's one of the reasons why we're not getting quite so much income from it. And the other part of my portfolio is events. Now, of course, most of those have had to be cancelled, which has, you know, made our plummet the amount of money we're getting in. But the good news is, of course, there are some well-known acts coming next year. So hopefully everybody will turn up to see Ollie Muirs. There's also John Bishop and Catherine Ryan coming. And as I've been saying to my officers, at least I've heard of them. You know, sometimes you get people, you know, I've never heard of them, but these ones I have heard of them. So Catherine Ryan I've seen on the last leg. So, you know, we've got some great acts coming, and I know the events team are working very hard to get some events that will be in a COVID-safe environment. So in these difficult times, I think, you know, we ought to thank all our staff because they've done a jolly good job. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Teresa. Well put. And yes, I know all of those acts as well, and hopefully many other people in Colchester will enjoy them. Okay, thank you all. That's been a helpful discussion on a very decent paper that has been supported by the scrutiny panel completely. And I just wanted to move, if we could, Richard, just to present those scrutiny panel recommendations, please. See if we can accept them as a cabinet to add to the report that's in front of us. Okay, thank you. So they noted the paper, and they added about ensuring that going forward we communicate with them the alternative ways of working and service provision involving partners and the community, and a review of the council's estate. And Councillor King responded to those yesterday and was very positive. We know that we've got asset management of our estate that is being reviewed constantly, and we can bring that to the scrutiny panel, but also that we are looking at how to transform services in the future. That's a piece of work we're doing in response to COVID. So that will definitely be something we can share with the scrutiny panel. Therefore, I think we can accept all of those resolutions and take those as part of the decision to agree this report on the business case for council efficiency and transformation programme tonight. So let's move to the vote, please, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to be clear there, that the scrutiny panel did not make any recommendations to Cabinet. So in effect, you will just note their decisions. Okay, so they're not, so it won't form part of the formal recommendations that you're deciding tonight.
Okay, thanks for making that clear.
Okay, Councillor Fox.
4.
4. Councillor Goss.
4.
4. Councillor Higgins.
4.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
Really sorry. 4.
4. Thank you. Councillor Corey.
4.
4. That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And moving on to the last item under number 7 is the year-end risk management report. And for that, I'll go to Councillor King and just see the YouTube channel increase with people ready for this report. David, I'm sure many are interested. Over to you.
Certainly, Councillor Dennis Willett and I are. I think after that, the list gets smaller, Leader. But to Dennis, if he picks up on that, it's a compliment. There's 3 requests for us, Leader, tonight, that we note progress and performance in managing risk in the last year. We consider and comment on the strategy and the current strategic risk register, and we recommend to full council that the strategy is included in the council's policy framework. This has been looked at by governance and audit and welcomed. The paper reflects improvements, and obviously, as it should, it reflects change, challenge, and our volatile discussions, those which we've really been touching on one way or another all of this evening. There is a welcome technical change that we have risk scoring before and after mitigation. From my experience, and others feel the same, this is, in short, good practice. Most importantly, we know that it helps shape conversations. It becomes a useful management tool to periodically look and challenge and test internally, and it's helpful to us, and we use it also, as well as those looking at the council as a whole. So I do really commend it accordingly. The detail is highly enjoyable, Leader, and I'm sure that when I talk about any one of the individual risks, you feel that rush of excitement that you referred to earlier. But I would perhaps draw out a couple in all seriousness, although there's a lot there. One would be data protection, where the pre and post mitigation actions and scoring goes from 20 to 10. So from, in the lexicon of the structure, from red to amber as a risk. But there is a sort of a deeper point, which is that there is a lot of coloured ink in this strategic risk register for the most obvious of reasons, which is that we are in difficult times. Anybody who does take an interest and looks at the risk register should not, in a sense, be alarmed by that. The key here is that we as an organisation have and show an awareness of where we are, and we have an awareness of what we can do. We cannot, particularly in these times, but in any circumstances, reduce and remove all risk. So what we've got in front of us is highly practical aid to good management and illustrations of where there's progress, a description of tools and techniques, and an approach to mitigate risk is on budget strategy as discussed tonight. So in the example given, it's gone from 20 to 15, it's still red for reasons we might understand. This is not to be concerned or alarmed for anybody who does get concerned or alarmed by risk registers. It is, as I say, just a really helpful, useful and well delivered way of judging how we work as an aid to management. I have discussed with the Chief Operating Officer's next steps of refinement, and that's been taken up with the senior team to look at the overlap between risks and to more readily identify outputs and outcomes and enablers in terms of risks and issues. But this is, in my view, an excellent set of documents It was seen as such by Governance and Audit, which is helpful to us all. I commend them accordingly, as we requested, to note, approve and recommend full council.
Thank you, David. And despite the humour about the interesting nature of it, I used to, as said before, hold that portfolio, and actually the risks are really important to be aware of. And especially as we are in a crisis at the moment, and we could face another crisis if we have a no-deal Brexit as well. So we need to manage those, and I know that those are on the risk register, and the effects of them, at least the impacts, are taken on board. So thank you, David, for giving us that summary. I'll therefore move straight to the vote because there's no one else to speak. Andrew, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Fox. For Councillor Goss. For Councillor Higgins. For Councillor King. For Councillor Lilly. For Councillor Young. For and Councillor Corey. Four. That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm aware of the time, but hopefully we will be able to move on quick enough to get to finish around 8 o'clock, unless anyone wants to indicate now needing to have a break. I can't see anyone. Okay, so I'll move on to the next item. Items under points 8 on the agenda. The first item, item 8.1, is the recommendations from the Environment and Sustainability Panel. That panel I chair, so I very much support the recommendations to the panel, and just wondered if the Democratic Services Officers could bring those up, please. The panel has recommended that the work on glyphosate reduction and phasing out, thank you, would continue, and supports the programme that we've put in place there. Also, the terms of reference to be agreed for the panel. That's something we need to do, and I should have said that first. The greening policy talks about the herbicide glyphosate, which we are ruling out and phasing out. And also then the grass verge cuttings and the rewilding and the naturalisation policy that we're absolutely pushing forward, and that is part now of the Woodland Project, which has become the Woodland and Biodiversity Project, managed mainly by Councillor King, with keen interest from me and Councillor Goss and all of us across the Cabinet. And finally, to look at the changes that come out of this panel to ensure that we delegate authority to the right officers and the portfolio holders in place to carry out these policies, greening Colchester as much as possible. So, Cabinet, I hope you are all pleased to see this environmental agenda, which is our top priority amongst our strategic plan priorities, and I'm absolutely keen to keep pushing forward. As chair of this panel, I would commend to you these recommendations and hope you can support them. I see Councillor Higgins. Teresa, please.
Yes, so thank you very much. I just want to support them all, but especially the one about the glyphosates. I'd just like to say I think we ought to do a bit more about lobbying County Council, because the residents don't understand that they're still using them. And I think somewhere along the line, I think we have to push them to try and get rid of them so that they don't do it in our borough at all. Otherwise, I'll support the rest of the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. I absolutely agree with you. And we have brought that up at a five-side meeting with the County Council. We will continue to do so. Thank you. I see no other comments, but I know that the Cabinet are very supportive of these recommendations. I see nods. Excellent. And I know Councillor Goss, under his portfolio, will put forward and work with these recommendations with staff, and Councillor King through the Woodland and Biodiversity Project. Okay, thank you. Therefore, with no other comments, I will move to the vote, please. Andrew, just to agree these recommendations for the panel.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Fox.
For
Councillor Goss.
Definitely for.
For Councillor Higgins.
For
Councillor King.
Absolutely for.
For Councillor Lilly. For Councillor Young.
Most definitely for.
For and Councillor Corey.
Absolutely for as well.
That's absolutely unanimous then. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew, for jumping on board with our absolutely excited yeses. And I did get caught being on mute there. Thank you, David. So moving on, Councillor Goss, to the next two items on the environment agenda. Item 8.2, the contract award for liquid fuels. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me all right? Because things are breaking up a little bit this end, so I just wanted to double check.
Yes, we can.
Fine. Okay, lovely, thank you. So this, the fuel item is a fairly straightforward paper. I'll just give you a very quick summary. So in terms of how we operate, like many organisations that deal with a vehicle fleet, we have a provision for fuel, and the contract will shortly need to be renewed, and therefore we're proposing that we bring forward a new 3-year contract from the 1st of November to the 31st of October 2023. It's an estimated value in the region of £2 million. Currently, we spend annually around £630,000. This can fluctuate. We can get out of the contract if needed. We have gone to one contractor because this seeks best value by using an appropriate framework. Issuing directly will not be more financially viable and could be potentially more expensive based on volumes. So, as I've said, it's a £2 million contract, currently £630,000 per annum. Fuel prices could increase by 4% before the fuel budget would be exceeded. There is, of course, uncertainty around Brexit. We've heard earlier around that in the risks with the EU transition could impact oil prices and therefore fuel prices, and officers will monitor the position. And last year, the council installed an additional fuel tank that can accommodate an additional 7 to 8 days worth of fuel, should that be required if there are any issues. We are, of course, aware of the environmental impact, and I will cover in the report on vehicles some stuff around electric vehicles and alternate fuels, as the two are slightly linked. But this contract, I'd like to get approval to delegate that to the Chief Operating Officer and get this pushed forwards, please.
Thank you, Martin. And I know that looking at the smaller fleet, that we will hopefully no longer require fuel for those if we move with those in the future to electrified vehicles, which I know you've been looking into with a small scale fleet. So that will be important for us. Cabinet, I hope we can support this paper and move it forward. I see no other comments, so I'll move straight to the vote, please. Andrew.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Councillor Fox.
4.
Councillor Goss.
4.
4. Councillor Higgins.
4.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
4.
4. And Councillor Corey.
4.
4. That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll move back to Councillor Goss for the next paper, please, on cage vehicles.
Yep, so following on from the fuel, obviously we need a fleet of vehicles for the fuel. So at the moment, we've got 21 3.5 tonne cage vehicles that we currently use across the borough. They are coming to end of life. We need to procure a new fleet, whether that be lease or purchase, purchase being the most likely option because that is slightly cheaper. These vehicles undertake an important role in emptying litter bins, collecting mist bins, undertaking exemption collections, removing fly tipping, general street cleansing and maintenance. So these are an important part of our fleet and obviously need to be replaced. They also run part of the Highway Ranger service. So based on the cost of borrowing and maintenance and the total revenue implications of purchasing vehicles amounts to £144,400 per year and a saving of 7,055 a year towards the 100k target. So why are we not looking at electric vehicles or non-diesel at this time? For these kind of vehicles, they're not a mature technology, and the electric cage vehicles are specialist vehicles. Obviously, if you're just buying a fleet of cars, car technology is more mature. There are more cars, and obviously economies of scale when you're building them in a factory it makes the unit cost cheaper. So the associated costs with an electric vehicle is also 200% higher compared to the most environmentally friendly Euro 6 diesel engine, resulting in a £95,000 budget pressure if we were to go out and buy electric vehicles. And of course, it's not a particularly well-tested technology. We have been working with the Energy Savings Trust on this, who have been advising other councils as well. Some councils have gone out and looked at this and purchased them, and it hasn't been very successful. And therefore, we've been working with the Energy Savings Trust on their recommendations as to how we tackle this long term, so that we can obviously move to electric vehicles when the technology is right and the cost is correct. Because in the current climate, you've heard from David about the budget pressures. We have to try and keep the equilibrium level. The Energy Savings Trust is working with us on delivering recommendations to help with fuel savings, energy savings towards our overall target, which obviously Colchester is one of the better councils for a green agenda. And therefore, we're looking at driver training for fuel efficiency, better use of fleet telematics to improve this, and obviously reducing idling, focusing on changing the smaller fleet longer term to electric vehicles, including looking at charging points at Rowan House and other areas. And also, of course, the most important thing is the infrastructure to support this. And we would need to invest in Shrub End, potentially in a substation, if we were to transfer all vehicles to electric charging, and potentially build an actual substation to deliver the amount of power. So that, I just wanted to give a bit to the green agenda, because it is really important, because obviously we have adopted the climate change motion. It may seem rather strange why we're purchasing a load of diesel vehicles at this time, but I hope that will cover that off. Happy to take any questions. If not, I'm happy to take this straight to the vote of Cabinet, please.
Thank you, Martin. That was a helpful explanation of the key detail of this procurement, so I welcome that. I see no other hands raised, so thank you for that detail, Martin. And I will move to the vote. Andrew, please.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Fox.
4.
4. Councillor Goss.
4.
4. Councillor Higgins.
4.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
4.
4. And Councillor Corey.
4.
4. That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for that. So moving on to the next items. Just before I do, those items were based on the environment agenda. I just wanted to say that the castle and the town hall are lit up green this evening because of our commitment to the environment and our green spaces. We have won Green Flag Awards for our prestigious parks, Highwoods Country Park, as well as Castle Park, as well as the cemetery and crematorium. And those green flags are further accentuated tonight by lighting up the castle and Castle Park. I think, Martin, there is one other green space that I've forgotten. I'm happy to be reminded of that by anyone who remembers it. If it is the rec, it may be. Councillor Higgins?
The university.
Oh, yes, thank you. Excellent. Yeah, I should know. It's in my ward. Okay, thank you. Moving on. So item 9 is an urgent decision that has been taken, and therefore we're reporting that urgent decision. Kindly, Jason Granger, the key officer, is listening to the meeting this evening if we have any key questions. But this report outlines the government support for test and trace support payments for when people have to isolate due to either themselves or people in their household on their bubble who have received a positive test for coronavirus. This support I welcome from the government. It means that people can receive £500 whilst they are isolated for a period at home. They can, if needed, receive this support multiple times. They would be unlucky if that's the case, but this support is being administered by the council, and we had to respond quickly to set up a policy and a mechanism in place that would support the people of our borough. Jason Granger is an excellent officer who leads an excellent team who support the benefits and welfare of our residents. And actually, Jason was asked to join, and we put him forward because of his experience, the National District Council Network team that was advising government on this particular policy. So Jason knows exactly how this policy would work and has helped us to administer it locally as best as possible. That has actually been up and running as the government requested since Monday, since the 12th of October. It was important to make sure we were on time to support any resident in need of this support. And we will use the compulsory payments and the discretionary payments as much as possible to support our residents of the borough. Hopefully, you all agree that it was the right step forward to take an urgent decision on this, which I had to take. I passed through the scrutiny panel chair as well, and it was an urgent decision in line with government policy. And once again, I thank Jason for getting that ready and the team getting that ready for Monday and being ready for the first support payments to be out by Monday. Are there any questions to that? Are we happy to note that that urgent decision has been taken? Andrew, are we okay to note, or do we need a vote on that?
Chair, you need a vote on this one.
Okay, thank you. I'll move to the vote then, please. I'll just check if there's any comments. No, there are not. We have discussed this as a cabinet because Jason brought it to us before, but I did have to take that urgent decision before the meeting this evening. Over to you, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Fox.
4.
4. Councillor Goss. Councillor Goss.
4.
4.
4.
Councillor Higgins.
4.
4. Councillor King.
4.
4. Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Councillor Young.
4.
4. And Councillor Corey.
4.
4. That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you again, Andrew. That's helpful, and that will help the people of our borough. So moving on to item 10, the progress of responses to the public. I will invite Richard Clifford just to explain that we have addressed any public questions that came to the Cabinet.
Thank you, Chair. I think this report notes that there weren't actually any have your say speakers at the last meeting of the Cabinet, so the report is just there for you to note.
Thank you. We responded to two have your say speakers tonight, and I think we will add to that in writing with Sir Bob Russell as well. Okay, thank you. Then I like to say that we have finished the agenda for this evening just before 8 o'clock, so we don't need to adjourn. Instead, we can adjourn back to our homes and enjoy the rest of the evening. So I thank you all, Cabinet, for those really important decision-making papers we had to talk about tonight. Thank you all. You do this out the kindness of your hearts and for the best of the borough, and I think we've made the good decisions tonight we needed to do. So thank you. There are no confidential items. I call the